Looks like we go. Okay. Alexander, are you kicking off? Oh, we can start. You kicked off already. Okay, but we missed that. So sorry for that. So good morning and welcome everyone to this online panel materials at the HIGHTECH VENTURE DAYS 2020 in a different setting than normally, but hopefully it's really has some value for everyone to listen. So we welcome today Mr. Paolo Bavaj from Henkel Ventures. We also welcome Hans Maenhout from Finindus. And we also welcome Paula Rodrigues from the venture team of Covestro. So first of all, I will start introducing myself. Alain and Loux from Cottonwood Technology Fund. We are an early stage venture capital fund. We have offices in the US and in Europe. We typically invest 1 to 2 million in the first round. Mostly we invest in the founding stage, no revenue, no customers, so quite early. And we like to invest in advanced materials, chemicals, because most of those inventions, they touch multiple product lines or multiple markets. So that reduces the risk and increases the chance of a big success. So our office in Europe is in the Netherlands. We screen and scout mostly around the technical universities and research institutes. So we always make the joke in marketing, you have the 4 Ps, and our 4 Ps are just 2 PhDs, a pitch deck, and a patent. That's our starting point. So as Cottonwood Technology Fund, we really like to receive pitch decks which could be relevant for us. Please don't hesitate to contact us. And I will give the word now to Paolo Bavaj to introduce himself and also Henkel.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alain. So my name is Paolo Bavaj from Henkel Tech Ventures. And as a corporate venture capital, we always have to think about how do we provide value to the parent company. And to say this up front, we don't provide value to the parent company with investments or financial gains on the investments. It's about the access to new technologies, which we could not have developed ourselves for various reasons. And new business models and new applications. This is and so the collaboration piece of between our operating business and the startups is how we are creating value for our for Henkel Adhesive Technologies. Nevertheless, we also invest from time to time, as this is a suitable tool to actually tighten the bonds and strategically between us and the startups. And if we invest. We can invest up to 5 million euros in a first investment and then in an additional investment up to 10 million euros. We are interested in anything which is related to material science or which is a digital business model with a material science link. But as I said, it always starts with the collaboration and then comes the investment. So I think that's about me and what we do in Henkel Tech Ventures. Who's next?
Okay, Paolo, thank you so much. Hans Maenhout from Finindus, please introduce yourself and also Finindus.
Yes, Alain, thank you. Very glad to be here. I'm a big fan of the event in Dresden, and unfortunately I couldn't make it this year, so very happy to be part of this panel. I work for Finindus, and actually Finindus is a VC investment company based in Belgium. We are in fact funded or co-funded by ArcelorMittal on one side, so till further notice still the biggest steel group in the world. and the Flemish region on the other side. So I often describe us as a bit of a hybrid structure between a corporate VC and a government VC. And we have a bit of characteristics of both. The nice thing is that we're also not restricted to Flanders to make our investments, so we can invest across Europe. And as a matter of fact, we also have one exception to the rule where we have made an investment even into the US. As far as technology fields is concerned, we are interested in materials, material processing, things like coating technology, surface functionalization, as well as sustainable manufacturing and topics in Industry 4.0. Digitalization of industry is a big focus area for us as well. And as a matter of fact, we have three different types of activities. First, we're an investor. We want to make money by investing in young, attractive companies, but also we do technology scouting as well. So our link to an industrial group makes that we can add value, as I think Paolo kind of described, by giving our one of our parents at least a good window on what's happening on the technology side. And last but not least, makes us a bit of unique is we also dare to venture into project financing, where we help new technologies to have a first of a kind implementation in the production facility here in Ghent. Main focus is on A and B rounds, occasionally C rounds. We started the fund with a fund size of 100 million back in 2006, and we've managed to grow that over time to around 180 million in assets today.
I was muted. Thank you so much. Paula Rodrigues from the venture team of Covestro.
Yes, hello, good morning. Thank you, Alain, for the introduction and also for inviting Covestro to be part of this event today. So my name is Paula Rodrigues, and together with my colleague, we are heading the venture capital activities at Covestro. This activity is very recent, so we have launched our venture team in February this year, and we are very much excited to continue this journey. So goal of the venture capital investment at our company is to invest into startups with potential to generate significant strategic as well as financial returns. And we very much lay a focus on the strategic side. So we are a strategic venture, and we would like to link the future venture investments to our internal strategies in the fields where Covestro wants to grow in the future. So those fields are biotechnology, circular economy, and additive manufacturing as some examples. From a financial point of view, Covestro invests as a sole investor or a co-investor alongside with other strategic and financial partners. So it means that each investment will be funded on a case-by-case basis, and we do not have a corporate fund. And each investment will need to go through the board and receive board approval. We think that we can add a lot of value for the startups. So our third pillar of our concepts, a part of the strategic and financial returns, is also the operational value. So we offer access to a huge base of customers, and we have production facilities around the world, and linked with a strong know-how. And we want to invest in companies where we can generate additional values, therefore, and where we can offer also those benefits to them. So Covestro has well-defined criteria for our investments. Our typical ticket size is between 1 to 5 million euros. We will invest, or we intend to invest in Series A or Series B, preferably. And we also seek for a minority share in these investments. And we do also not exclude the follow-up capital, which will be determined again on a case-by-case basis again. So having said this, for Covestro, venture capital is a way to gain access to new products but also to new markets and industry, and to push together boundaries through innovative and transformative ideas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we have a real interesting materials panel today. So we will discuss some market trends, which are the trends outside of the corporate world. What about the technology trends? And then also the role of collaboration between startups and corporates, challenges with startups. And we will end up the last 20 minutes of the session in a Q&A. So please don't hesitate to ask questions to the panel. Yeah, let's start about some market trends. What do we see in the outside area? What is the customer demand? Henkel, Paolo, can you tell something about it? Looks like you're muted.
So for us, market trends and technology trends, they go hand in hand, because if we see a market trend, there is already a technology trend connected with it, because you need to provide the technology and to also develop the technology in order to find a solution for a certain market trend. But we see basically three different trends. The first big, and I think this is not rocket science, the first big trend is of course the digitalization, and as I said, we are very much interested in digitalization, but it has to be related to a material science background. So we would not, develop an e-commerce platform or something like that for adhesive technologies. But what we would do is, and what we are doing is, we have a quite large maintenance, repair, overhaul business, and the digitalization of that business is predictive maintenance. So we have a team in the operating business, what we call MRO 4.0, and they are developing a predictive maintenance solution for Henkel. And we do support them with a lot of startups, be it very unique sensor companies, or be it companies providing some differentiation through an algorithm in order to drive the right conclusions from the sensor signals to the maintenance guys. So predictive maintenance is one example for digitalization, which we see and which we are taking on quite seriously. The second trend is, and I think it's not anymore a new trend, it's additive manufacturing. But it's interesting. It's such an old technology, but it seems like it's really only starting off significantly right now. And as a material provider, we are certainly interested in formulating materials for the different 3D printing technologies. And as any company of our size, we certainly have a broad technology portfolio, but we do have some holes in this portfolio, and these holes we try to complement with startup technologies. And the third thing is actually very prominent, and which we are facing every day, which is related to COVID-19. So we do see a huge trend of antimicrobial and antiviral startups, and I have to say that they are really there were since quite some time a lot of antimicrobial, antibacterial startups popping up, mainly to develop a alternative to the incumbent silver technology. But since COVID-19, these startups are also promoting their technologies as being antiviral, and here I have to say 90% of what we see is charlatans. It's not really serious. We see computer simulations, we see assumptions, we see transfer conclusions why their technology should also work as an antiviral technology, but we don't think this is real. But there are some startups which are differentiated and where we think they have really found something which will make a difference in the future. So I think these are the three trends we are seeing from our side: digitalization, additive manufacturing, and anything which is related to antiviral coatings.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, the COVID-19 changes a lot probably, but good to hear that there are also some charlatans probably. So everyone has to be aware what's popping up at the market. So yeah, Hans at Finindus, what do you see outside the market popping up kind of market trends?
Yeah, I think in our world there's a lot is changing as well, and obviously we're also heavily focused on our industrial partner ArcelorMittal and their core business to kind of see what's going on. I would like to start with three call it statements or observations. The first one is steel is everywhere. If you look in buildings, you look into cars, probably even the way your desk is kept together that you're currently sitting at. Steel is really everywhere. A second observation is steel is indefinitely recyclable, costs a bit of energy, obviously. And in all honesty, also the high-end grades are a bit hard to manufacture from recycled scrap. But let's say that the bulk of the steel production, there's a good opportunity for recycling there. And I think a third observation is that we're an industry that is a bit under pressure because of carbon dioxide emissions that are intrinsic to the process. At the end of the day, we start off with iron ore that we need to reduce. And historically, the most efficient or cost-efficient way of reducing iron ore was through using carbon in the form of coal. Make it into cokes and basically bring it into a fully integrated steel manufacturing process. So we need the carbon as a reductant. We need the carbon as an energy source, which basically means that initially, many decades ago, per ton of steel that was produced, we were emitting more than 3.5 tons of CO2. Over the years, we have fine-tuned this process to be able to reduce that emission to 1.7 tons per ton of steel. But you could still say that we make, by weight, more CO2 than we make steel. And obviously, that is something which is coming more and more under pressure. And we see that even in the steel industry, big pledges are made. We look at the latest sustainability report of ArcelorMittal. We look at some of the statements that Mr. Mittal himself has made. Is we are aiming for a reduction of CO2 emissions by 30% by 2030, and we aim to be carbon neutral by 2050. And it's looking at the current process, it is clear that we're not going to get there by just improving what we're currently doing. So we need substantial change. And we will need different technologies, we will need different processes to get us from where we're at today to that target in 2050. And the technologies, it's even worse, the technologies that will get us to the 30% reductions are probably not the same than the technologies that will get us to the carbon neutrality. So technology is a key word in this whole thinking and process, combined with a very clear roadmap. We see the road to decarbonization as based on three pillars. First of all, there is increase the energy and the material efficiency. So be more efficient with the energy you use, be more efficient with the materials, recycle them, reuse them, or make them more powerful or more performant so that you need less of it. A second pillar will be new processes, so fundamental new processes of making steel. And last but not least, there's also a whole area around CCU and CCS, carbon capturing and utilization and storage, that will be an important role. And we also know that not one of these technologies will save our industry. And we will need a combination of all three to get to the targets that we've put ahead of ourselves. New concepts are being introduced around circular carbon, reuse and recycling, as I say, are big topics. Making the process further more efficient by applying Industry 4.0, by applying artificial intelligence to what is traditionally a very old industry. And we see a couple of new concepts popping up. There's new products. High-strength steels have been around for a while. But they allow also decarbonization in mobility because they allow us to reduce the weight of vehicles and allow for more weight to go into batteries. But there's a second important trend that we see emerging as well, and there's a bit of a market pull on that side. It's the concept of green steel. Making steel that has a lower CO2 impact is becoming more important because our customers, being the car industry, the automotive industry, is asking for it, but also, the producers of wind turbine need steel for their towers. And they also realize that to lower the global, the total impact, environmental impact of their technologies, they also need to look at their own supply chains. So we see a big pressure there as well. And I think we as an investor and as a technology scout for a steel company contribute to all these different aspects because we make visible technologies to them, but we can also help with actually getting these technologies or these great ideas scaled up into real industrial processes. And I think there is where I see the biggest role that we can play as Finindus.
Okay, Hans, yeah, really interesting to hear. Are they also afraid for future CO2 taxes, or?
Well, they're already there. The border, the CO2 taxes, of course, we have in Europe, we have this whole CO2 allowances system, the trading system, which is putting a huge burden, which is distorting a little bit the international competition, because steel that comes out of China is not burdened by that. And there you still have steel mills that emit 3.6 tons CO2 per ton of steel produced. So there's been a lot of lobbying going on to create a level playing field. Concepts like border tax have been discussed and partly decided, but I'm sure there's much more that can be done.
Okay, interesting to know. So yeah, let's go over to Covestro and what's going on in the outside market over there.
Yes, so there is not that much additionally to add to what my colleagues have previously said. But one additional point, additionally to those topics like additive manufacturing, where we are also focusing in on digital technology, I would like to highlight here, especially everything and all the activities around circular economy. So circular economy has been also stated as part of Covestro's, or as the vision of Covestro, so to become fully circular. And here we would like to highlight really what is ongoing here. So we first look at what kind of alternative raw materials are there, and as already Hans was saying, it is about CO2, and the CO2 here we have also very good examples already how to bundle CO2 from the atmospheric into polyols, which then could be used into our raw materials. And one of our prominent examples is Cardion, a product where we have launched, which is made of CO2 based materials coming from the atmosphere. Additionally, we should also look on the challenges to the future, how to become really circular, and looking at the point of how to manage recycling. And here, still, we need also, from a first point, also look very much on the supply chains, how to get them completed from not only producing the materials, but also then to find ways to collect the materials back. And then chemistry starts to get into the place. So it is about technologies like generally mechanical recycling. If there are no ways, no other ways, you could mechanically recycle the materials and reuse them. But also we should look on further more ambitious technologies leading with chemocatalysis or even electrochemistry, but also looking on terms of biotechnology, what kind of molecular biology techniques you could find, like enzymatic, as an example, how to make the degradation of the polymer chains, and to probably get ways to find, to degrade the polymers to get building blocks that you can reuse again and put again into the cycle of circularity. So having said that, for me, circular economy will play a tremendous role also especially in the future for all the companies related in polymers. Polymer itself is a value material, and we need to rethink how to deal with this precious material, and not to throw it away, but find ways to reuse it and extend their lifetime assessment. Having said this, so and also not adding much more than what Paolo was saying to additive manufacturing or even digital technology, I would only highlight an additional field which we name new markets and new materials. So we always need to think that we are established companies, we have established products, and we should always keep our eyes open towards new technology which could always improve our existing materials or improve our existing technologies, but also based on those materials and technologies which might be able to open up also new applications fields for the future, and new markets and industries in different geographies. So this is, I would say, from my part, the most important materials and technology trends for the future.
Okay, thank you so much. So there came a question out of the audience for Hans Maenhout Finindus. Probably, Hans, you can repeat the question and give the answer to the audience. You're still muted. Hans, you are muted, sorry.
I had a little, my computer was acting up a little. I apologize for that. Yes, I mean, that's a very good question. I think the nature of venture capital, despite the fact that we're an evergreen, I think I failed to mention that in the beginning, I think is in this context very important, because if you're set up as a true financial fund needing to show a return in 10 years, that for us, in a lot of the topics we invest in, is very hard to do, if not impossible. Bearing in mind, if you would be a fund that is 2 or 3 years into its lifetime and still then needs to go to an exit, you need to be able to realize something. But that's a bit a long story, just to say that our initial focus now is mainly on that first 30% reduction. A lot of the technologies we look at actually contribute to that, and less to the really longer term, more fundamental, complete move away or some other way making carbon neutrality happen. To give you an example, actually, if we look into alternative reductants for steel process, for steel manufacturing, today we are looking at technologies that have been around also for a while, such as the production of biocoal, using biomass as an alternative reductant. We could use end-of-life polymers as an alternative reductant in the blast furnaces. We don't need to change the blast furnace, it's still the same process, but there's some auxiliary processes need to be developed around it. That will not lead us to 100% CO2 abatement. That is clear. If we want to go to 100% CO2 abatement, We will need DRI based on hydrogen and all other completely new types of almost reactors that we need to build in our plant. So this is a very long time, very capital intensive initiative, which is much more less suitable for venture capital investors. I mean, even with a ticket of 10 million euros, I mean, there's very little you can do in that space. So our focus is mainly on that first 30%. We would be happy to contribute to the rest as well. But I think at this point in time, that's more of a symbolic contribution. And there's a bigger contribution to come either from the corporates themselves as a long-term vision or from governments or the European Union that can help fund these larger industry-wide projects.
Okay, thank you so much for the answer. So yeah, we have, I think, lots of challenges and hurdles to go over to really become CO2 neutral in the future. On my side, what I see as venture capitalists, lots of startups which try to solve the battery problem. So especially the lifetime of batteries. So everyone knows the lithium-ion batteries. So I see lots of startups trying to solve the problem with other kind of materials, and also try to increase the safety of batteries because they're still burning down or can even be exploded. So that's also a technology trend, what I see, especially at the startup side. So if we go to the startups in collaboration with the corporates, I would like, for example, first to Henkel. What is in general a typical way to cooperate between a corporate like Henkel?
As I mentioned in the introduction, the collaboration between our operating business and the startups is really how we provide value to the operating business. So the collaboration is extremely important for us, and this is where we put a lot of emphasis on. I think in the first of all, you need to make sure that this is really a win-win situation. So I think the advantage for Henkel is relatively clear. We get we get access to a technology which we could not have developed ourselves, but which we could use in our portfolio. But we also have to provide advantages to the startup companies, otherwise it wouldn't work. In our case, it's very similar to what Paula mentioned in her introduction earlier. We understand that technology development takes on average 8 to 10 years, and we as a corporate are not willing always to wait really that long time for a technology development. So we would love to work with startups and to build on something they already developed. On the other hand, it also takes a very, very long time to develop a meaningful customer base. And this is what the startups didn't do because they didn't have had enough time, but what we did. So Henkel Adhesive Technologies, we are serving 130,000 customers directly in a B2B business and 2 or 3 million through distribution. So this customer access is a huge treasure for startup companies, and we love to bring them along to our customers and to introduce them to our customers. And the side effect also, if we are doing that, is that the startup gets more credibility. So it's not only a door opener, it also allows the startup very often to run a project together with one of our customers. We had experience, for example, with an automotive tier one, and this automotive tier one met a startup company and loved the technology, but told them, your technology is really great, but unfortunately we cannot work with you because according to our governance, we can only work with companies who have at least a 2 million euro revenue, 200 million euro revenue. And of course, a startup does not have that. So, and if we come as Henkel along with the startup, backing up the startup, then of course, there's much more credibility that the startup won't go away overnight. So I think there's a lot of what we can provide. Footprint, our global footprint is another thing. Our technologies and access to our technologies is also something we do, and of course, coaching and mentoring. So we do a lot of things with the startup together, where we, vice versa, we provide a lot of these strategic advantages to them, and in return, we love to get access to their technology and to incorporate that technology into our portfolio. And we do that, for example, in the case of predictive maintenance, where I mentioned particular sensor technologies. which we need in order to build a differentiated predictive maintenance business. We do that in the case of automotive electronics. We just closed an investment last week into Act Nano in the Boston area. They have developed a very new, innovative coating technology to protect automotive electronics from water. And as electronics is more and more dominant and prominent in cars, and not only in EV cars, also in traditional cars, it's extremely important how to protect that. Because as we all know, if one of these platines, if one of the PCBs is not working anymore, then the entire car is not working anymore. And so a very small failure in these cars, in the electronics, might lead to a complete failure of the entire car. So this is, I think, an important technology. And one example on where we see a fit between our operating business and the startup. We did start since the end of 2016 about over 120 of these collaborations, and we are currently running 40 active collaborations, and we do have only 7 active investments into startups. And here you can see really the priorities. The collaboration is the priority, and win-win is important.
Yeah. Hey, Paolo, a question from the audience. Can you invest in a startup that is not serving your current existing customers? So it's a complete new disruptive technology.
Yes.
Is that an option for you?
Yes.
You can do that? Okay.
Yes, of course. And we like that because, there's always two coins two sides to the coin. So on the one hand side, of course, we know exactly what our operating business strategically needs and what kind of technologies would be a fit to them. But on the other side, we also get sometimes surprised by the startups we see. And, sometimes a particular technology is not really in the focus of our operating business, but we love to bring that forward to inspire them because we think it could be a business of Henkel going forward, even if it is not today. And this, of course, is also valid for the customers. I mean, who doesn't like new customers, right? So if you can access new customers through a startup, I mean, of course, this is something we are really looking for.
Yeah. Hey, Hans, at ArcelorMittal, do they also have so many corporations, or is it a little bit different?
Yeah, we have quite some. I wouldn't say many. It depends on how you define many, obviously. But we have a couple of good examples actually where this actually worked very well. Because what we see is that if a young promising technology company works with a big corporate, there's a number of advantages that they get, and there's also a number of advantages the corporate can get, obviously. Yeah? We all have seen the pitch decks where there's a lot of logos of big corporates, but the question is do they really have a close cooperation? If there is really a close cooperation, I think that adds to the credibility of the company. Whether or not we've invested in it is then an additional point, because if you have big corporate investors that have invested in you, it seems like they believe in your technology. I think that has a very important signaling function to the market, to the investors, to all the stakeholders. We had a great example of a company that we run across. It was a Dutch company that does predictive maintenance on electric motors. We had an opportunity to invest. We thought at a certain point in time, but we ended not investing, but we brought them in contact with ArcelorMittal. They thought the technology was really interesting. They actually bought 50 of their pieces of equipment, installed it in one of the most critical production lines in the manufacturing facility in Ghent, and they've had tremendous success with it. They were able to predict failure of electric motors 3 months ahead of time. So that was a very powerful thing. The advantage to ArcelorMittal was that it is a production step which is on a critical path, which is actually a capacity constraint. So we could take out a big part of the unscheduled shutdowns. But for the company, obviously for the technology company, it was huge because now they had this big customer that was willing to testify in the outside world that the solution actually works. And it went even further, is that ArcelorMittal ended up winning an award on Industry 4.0 on this particular project. So there was truly a win-win. I mean, there was a win for the corporate, and there was a big win for the technology company. So I like that type of stories. The only unfortunate bit for Finindus is we've never invested in these guys, and they're now having so much access to capital that they probably don't need us anymore. But at least, I mean, we've played our role.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, and at Covestro, how was the situation over there?
Yes, so as I said before, we don't look back to a long story, but anyhow, so we also have made our experience during the year, and as you might know, we have already invested in two companies. The one was Prime Science Technology, and the other one was Hydrogenious. So, and first of all, here the strategic fit is given to our company. But what is more important when doing any kind of investor is that we need to seek out for a business owner. So we are the venture capital team. So we look for interesting technology. We evaluate the technologies together with our colleagues, and we have a community who supports us. But so far, we are not intending to do an investment which does not have somehow a home in our company. And this is much more important because we may do the investment, but afterwards there might be the interests should be at the company, and there should be someone driving it ahead, and also keeping the dialogue with the startup, not on the financial and not on the conditions of the terms, but more on the scientific role, and also on the scientific and on the market approach role. And as I said also before, both companies, Covestro and also a startup, both parties will mutually benefit from a collaboration. So startups might get access to our global network. We are a global company, and we have customers all around the world, and we have a strong expertise in polymer chemistry. Also talking with scientific advisors is here an interesting way for them, but also not on the scientifically, but also on the sales and marketing, how to approach, how are the hurdles, are we able to open up customer doors for them, and is it able then to introduce the product much faster into the market? And also then, last but not least, we could look at our P&T structure. So we produce several products, and so probably we might have facilities which will enable a startup company to fasten up their development. But for all those questions, you need to have business owners within the company who look at those topics from an other angle, like we do at the venture capital side. For Covestro, this collaboration with the potential company will also be very beneficial for us. It's the outside-in approach to get access to new technologies, to gain also access to new markets where we are probably not in, and where we do not have a solution therefore, as well as industry, and also to continue to be an innovative leader in this area. So we very much look forward then to collaborate a part of making and realizing an investment. We would love to see other fields of collaboration be it in the market area, be it in the R&D area, or be it in the P&T areas, we bring a lot we offer a lot to those customers, to those startups, and we would love to see additionally relationship a part of the investment.
Okay. Yeah, I think in general, all the venture teams, at least which are here in the panel, they play an important role as a linking pin between the startup world, the technology trends, and the corporate. So even if you are not investing. So that's very relevant, I think, for the future strategy of the corporate. So we also get a question from the audience about material startups. As everyone knows, it's very mostly long development cycles, 7 to 8 years, no revenues. And the question is, how do you deal with it from a VC perspective? So first of all, this is typically our sweet spot, so we know this is quite common. Our fund lifetime is 10 plus 2 means in total 12 years. And it's very frustrating if we meet VCs who get initially interested in material startup, and then then they're complaining, oh, there is still no revenue after 5 years. So, but that makes me happy about this kind of network with HIGHTECH Startbahn and HIGHTECH Venture Days. I think everyone here understands the same language, and no one is complaining about startups which have no revenue after 5 years, because everyone knows it could take up 7 or 8 years for technology building. Of course, the sooner the better, but it's quite common. So we know what we are doing, and for us, the most frustrating is if we talk to people which don't understand this. So, but yeah, we can deal with it because we know it will take a long time. Another question. Let me check what's going.
Yeah, but Alain, I think
yes.
Just to build a little bit on that, I think we would hate actually to have invested into a startup and not see revenues, after 5 years. I mean, we would really hate that situation. So I think dependent on where the startup is in the technology development cycle, there are probably different approaches from a corporate, at least, to a startup. So I think in the beginning, first of all, we are very well aware that technology development takes time. I mean, we develop technologies ourselves, and also in Henkel, it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, also in Henkel, it takes these average 8 years. But I think in the beginning, if the startup is relatively early, we would never invest into that startup, but we would support them, we would collaborate, we would help them. We would do everything we can in order to make that technology and that startup successful. And I have to say that the investment really only comes when we can see the commercialization, when they have a proven technology, and when also industry players and customers did accept that.
Yeah, correct. I know the corporates are mostly a little bit later stage, but at least they understand how it's evolving and developing. Yes. So that's the most important thing, that there is at least common understanding about this. So are there more questions from the audience, or what kind of tips can we give to startups if they want to collaborate with Covestro or Finindus or Henkel or...
Well, I would say one of the biggest challenges I see between big corporates working with startups is misalignment in agendas. Timelines are just not matching up. Very often the technology companies need to show results in the next couple of months, where big corporates say, well, if we don't deal with this project now, we can always do it next year. We'll put it in the budget for next year. So there's an intrinsic a bit misalignment on the need on how quickly you need to show success. And I think to have an open communication about that also with your corporate investor or whatever, and just ask them what they can do about it. Is there a real project that they can sell into? I would like to paraphrase one of our colleagues of Chevron Ventures that I heard speak last year somewhere, which I think was spot on. She said, it's easier for small technology companies to get capital out of a corporate than to do a commercial transaction with a corporate. And that's exactly right. I mean, we've been in companies that we were willing to give them money, but then they wanted to sell their equipment to ArcelorMittal. That took ages. I mean, they just... and to be able to resolve that is, I think, could be a good stepping stone towards successful corporation.
I think that's different with Henkel. So when we worked with the predictive maintenance sensors, we always buy their sensors and install their sensors first before we invest, because we would like to make sure that it really, really works. And seeing is believing. I mean, you can believe a lot of PowerPoint slides, but we would like to do our own experience, and very often this the first step is that you become a customer of that.
Paolo, 100%. But my challenge very often is if I see a deal and it's interesting, I need to decide on investing within a time frame of months. And my industrial colleagues, by the time they have bought this equipment, put it into place, and come up with results, we're a year further. So there is a mismatch very often between the need for the investment and the time it takes for us to do a technology evaluation, and that is a struggle every time. But
But I see, especially at startups, that sometimes it's a very young team and they have kind of junior business developers. So my recommendation is always to attract someone, kind of an industry expert, to the startup, which has at least 20 years experience in the industry, and especially experience how to deal with the corporates. Because if you don't know how a corporate works, you will never sell anything. So it's a completely different approach than to small SMEs or the rest of the market. So that's my recommendation, always to recruit someone who is a real senior with corporate experience.
Yeah, I think the key from a startup perspective is, I mean, we all know that corporates are not necessarily fast. So I think it takes time to work with corporates. In the end, it is hopefully worth it, but it will take time. So it is extremely important from a startup perspective that you pick your corporate partner extremely carefully, because you probably don't have the time and the money to approach 2, 3, 4 corporate partners and just to try out how it is working with Henkel, how is it to work with Covestro and so on. So I think you need to pick your partner extremely carefully to make a strategic decision. You go with that corporate partner, and then you have to have a little bit of patience and to deal with it. And I think it's our job from the CVC area to make sure that this time frame is not too long, and we always, I always say we act a little bit as the mitigators between the startups and Henkel. So we translate between the operating business and the startups.
Both worlds, yeah.
And we also make sure that everybody gets what they would like to get out of that collaboration, both sides. I think that is also very important.
Yeah. So, and additionally, from Covestro, as I said before, so we invest normally in Series A or Series B. At least it's not anymore in the early stage phase where developments would still need their longer cycles. And so we expect the revenues also to be more faster. But even though I totally agree with you, Paolo, on what you said, we also not invest only in the technology and in a startup. We also much invest in a management and who run the startup, and believing and having trust in this management and being convinced that this management will make it. I think when you get this feeling, I think then you cannot do anything wrong. Everything else will come patiently.
Yeah, it's all about the people on the startup side and also on our side.
I agree.
Yeah, what I also see is that corporates like to deal with corporates. I always said the elephant likes to meet the elephant. So as a startup, if, for example, if you can touch Henkel, and not only because they have the 200 million qualifying revenue, but also very important is that they have access to markets. So if you have to build up that network, it will take a long, long time. And lots of startups, they underestimate it. No, we can knock on the door at all the car manufacturers ourselves. Now you will never get there. So, and some startups are afraid for losing some margin. Yes, if you can calculate it only that way, you forgot one thing: it's access to markets, and that value is really great. So that's mostly the reason why the elephants keep the elephant and still remaining big. So yeah, but that's why they are already an elephant. So
but
I think.
Yeah. Also go slowly, right? I mean, we should not. I mean, we always sometimes have the expectation that the startup is growing super fast, developing super fast, and doing everything in light speed. I mean, we should actually take some time, look back to our own history, and then we easily find out that things take time. I mean, if we look at our portfolio of businesses, I don't think that we have a business which we develop from 0 to 200 million euros in just 2 or 3 years. I mean, it always took time, and so this time factor is something which is there, which we cannot talk away. We just have to deal with it.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much. So it's almost 11 o'clock and some people have to leave because they have other meetings. So that's in the digital world we're in right now also very important to have especially focus on the end timing. So I would really thank the panelists, Paolo from Henkel, Hans Maenhout from Finindus, and Paula from Covestro. So thank you so much for your contribution and being here. And I give the words back to Alexander Tietze from HIGHTECH Venture Days, HIGHTECH Startbahn. So you can end up the session. And thanks also for the audience for listening.